This week on Arizona Illustrated, the serenity and elegance of Yume Japanese gardens, a local foundation that's been striving to save lives for over 10 years. Lessons from the Barnyard improve care at the bedside, and the future and past of the Rocking K Ranch from the vault. Hello and welcome to Arizona Illustrated. I'm Tom McNamara. The Sonoran Desert is an arid place of bright sunshine, big open skies, but there's a place right here in the middle of Tucson that can transport you halfway around the world to the lush and tranquil gardens of Japan.
In our modern world of traffic congestion, busy schedules, and stress over money or relationships, many people are craving a bit of peace and relaxation, solitude, and reflection. It may seem difficult to achieve, but sometimes there's refuge right around the corner, literally.
A few years ago, I decided to create a Japanese garden for the city of Tucson. It's open to the public because I felt that the Japanese culture was such a beautiful thing that it was to be shared.
I heard about it going in a few years ago, being connected to the Japanese community in Tucson. And so when I finally made it over here, I was stunned at how beautiful it was. My wife and I lived in Japan, in Nagoya, for a year, and we loved the gardens and visited a lot. To have something like this on Alvernon was stunning.
Japanese gardens are very peaceful, and they're meant to be, in their own way, a healing gardens. I hope that people can come here and find peace.
The instrument I'm playing is called the shakuhachi. It has a very long relationship to Zen Buddhism in Japan, and it's used not as a musical instrument generally, but as a meditation tool. Shakuhachi, the Japanese flute, it really fits this setting, and to play here is very different than playing in my living room or playing anywhere else. And so the fact that this is here helps the meditation of the instrument and helps my understanding of what it means. There's a relationship between this setting and certain states of mind, certain arts, which is why it's great to have this kind of a place.
This is a typical Japanese house that you will find in the countryside. It's not a tea house. It doesn't have the right elements. And anybody who comes to the garden can come in without shoes. They are made of clay and wood and paper. And you sit on tatamis, which is the old-fashioned. They always have an alcove, a flower arrangement, and an artwork. Today we're going to start with a single flower arrangement that I usually done for tea ceremony. You can just play with the colors of the leaves. One flower, that's fine. One leaf, that's fine. A different material. Flower arrangements are very similar to the structure of Japanese garden. You have a lot of elements in it that are very natural. You use branches and flowers, never just flowers, if you can help it. I teach the most ancient school that is 550 years old, that is called Ikenobo. And there's about 2,500 schools in Japan. I want this to be three-dimensional, not totally flat. So
it's very meditational. It's a creative outlet. And you create beauty. It's a wonderful contribution to the community and awareness of the Japanese culture.
In the back somewhere.
So a bit taller than.
A little taller, yes.
Patricia DeRuyter's connection to Japan and its culture has been developing for decades, taking root and intensifying over a lifetime. DeRuyter was born in Belgium and suffered from polio as a little girl. Her parents were relentlessly committed to DeRuyter and her brother, with frequent trips to the countryside to enjoy nature and to exercise. DeRuyter grew strong and independent, and by the time she was 18 years old, she was allowed to pursue a lifelong dream: move to Japan by herself to learn the language and delve into the culture.
I knew from early on that I wanted to discover Japan, and I went there to study Japanese and stayed 15 years.
After moving to Wisconsin with her American husband and raising 2 children, she decided to explore her options in sunny Arizona.
When I moved, I had to recreate myself, basically, because I didn't have the jobs that I had up north. And my parents passed away and left me an estate, which I sold. And eventually, I decided I was going to do what I always wanted to do my whole life, is to create a Japanese garden and a museum.
It is constant work and commitment, but DeRuyter is trying to persevere.
It took me about a year and a half to build it because it was just, there was nothing here. And we opened in 2013. 日本にいる。
いや、1ヶ月後ぐらい。
そう、3
今月
週間。
の終わりに。
Hidenobu Oki is attending Pima Community College temporarily, but he's originally from Japan. He was looking for something to do in his spare time and was amazed by this discovery.
Last August, I came here and I have no classes, so I just boring every day. So I look for some volunteers through the internet, and I looked for Japanese garden here. So I came here.
It does seem surprising and unusual for some people. A Japanese garden in Arizona's Sonoran Desert established and run by a woman from Belgium. But it's all part of DeRuyter's transcontinental path, her journey, from Europe to Asia to North America, where she found a place to call home in a garden she desired.
Well, that's the story of my life. That's a summary of the life that I've had. It's really the summary of what I've lived for. Actually, the name of the garden is Dream in Japanese. Yume means dream. And I always had hope to share what I had learned. And I had a mentor when I was in Japan who said, at a certain age, you have to return what you have received. And it's my way of returning. And I was lucky to be able to do it.
Ten years ago, Stephen Gootter, a healthy, active 42-year-old man, lost his life to sudden cardiac arrest, or SCA. SCA can kill you within minutes if it's not treated, and it claims the lives of over 900 people in the U.S. every day. Well, Stephen Gootter's death shocked his family. It also spurred them into taking action to provide others in our community with a chance to prevent and possibly survive sudden cardiac arrest.
Attorney Rob Charles is a big fan of playing tennis, but a typical doubles match in 2010 resulted in something unpredictable. Rob was playing with friends at Tucson's Racket and Fitness Club when he collapsed unexpectedly.
But I am told I was serving, hit a serve, came into the net, fell to the ground. People thought I was fooling around.
But it wasn't a joke. Rob's heart stopped beating without any warning, so blood flow to the brain and other vital organs would also cease if not attended to immediately. Death was almost certain.
A cardiologist in town, Dr. Howe, is finishing up his workout, he comes running out with the club's AED defibrillator and starts CPR on me. Then they fire up the defibrillator. A couple of tries by the machine and my heart starts again.
He was rushed to what was then University Medical Center. His family was notified.
If you had told me that he'd been hit by a car, anything like that, I would have said, okay, you know, that's the universe. But I would have never expected a heart condition to do that. And so by the time we got to the hospital, we knew he was alive, but conditions they don't, you know, until they actually bring you out, they don't have a clue whether or not you've been deprived of oxygen. So we went through 3 days of really not knowing what the future was going to be.
Rob remained in a coma until a major operation 2 days later.
I wake up Monday night, having no idea where I had been. I'm alert, more or less. By Tuesday, discover I've had a sudden cardiac arrest, quadruple bypass experience.
Following that frightening episode, Rob and Ann began to learn more about this topic. That led them to the Gootter Foundation in Tucson. Rob shares his story to spread the message. Ann volunteers her time on the board.
When you go through a trauma like that, you have two choices. You can say, I'm just going to forget about it and go on with my life, or you can say, I'm going to make a difference. The Gooters are an example of people who make a difference, and I want to be part of that.
The Gootter Foundation is named for Stephen M. Gootter. He was an active and healthy 42-year-old husband and father of two who collapsed during a jog in 2005. Unfortunately, without the equipment or personnel for assistance nearby, he did not survive.
The grief is an ongoing process. It's been a little over 10 years, and you know, it doesn't really get easier. There's just a little more distance from the loss.
It's a very personal thing. I was very close to Steve. You know, he was my brother-in-law, but truly I considered him my brother. Just such a wonderful human being.
The family turned their grief into action.
We became mobilized to do something greater in his honor. And so the foundation was established. Originally, we thought we'll do a small tennis event. He was a great athlete, a great tennis player. That ballooned into, well, if we're going to do a tennis event, we'll do a gala dinner to accompany it.
Tonight, we celebrate the life of Steve Gootter, who is my brother-in-law.
The foundation is a Tucson-based organization that raises awareness, increases education, and helps to fund research to try to prevent and treat these arrests. Sudden cardiac arrest is the leading cause of natural deaths in the United States. It claims more than 300,000 lives each year, more than lung cancer, breast cancer, and AIDS combined. Its victims are often in their 30s or 40s, but other ages are not exempt, and there are few or no warning signs or symptoms.
If we can save one life, it's worth everything. So it's very important to us to make a difference, to hope that another family doesn't have to experience the same tragedy and grief that we have.
Since 2005, the foundation has raised several $1 million for its mission, which includes the distribution of AEDs. Dozens of these life-saving devices are being donated to places where large groups of people gather, such as theaters or schools. First responders, police and fire departments are also getting them.
This AED is really easy to use. Once you power on the unit, it begins giving you step-by-step instructions.
Remove clothes from patient's chest.
The next step will be to apply the pad, and the device itself actually will take into account the person's condition and actually measures their vitals to see if it's really applicable.
As first responders, especially in some of the outlying rural areas in our county, we may be the first to arrive at the scene of a cardiac arrest prior to fire or EMS personnel. It's a great tool for the time that it's needed. I would much rather have this and never use it than not have it but need it at some time.
It's been, very rewarding. Of course, bittersweet, but rewarding to be able to do this.
I think we've had a very successful 10 years, and we're looking forward to the future and ultimately the cure for sudden cardiac arrest.
Meantime, Rob Charles is back on the tennis court, grateful for all who have helped him, but determined to stay on track.
My father had a heart attack on the tennis court, his father did, and so everyone says to me, well, that of course means you're not playing tennis anymore, which is the furthest thing from my reality. My reality is some kind of exercise is a critical piece of mental health and physical health, and this is what I do.
Like what you see on Arizona Illustrated? Visit our webpage at azpm.org to watch and share videos from this episode. You'll also find stories from future programs, an easy way to submit your own story idea, an archive of past episodes of Arizona Illustrated, and you'll find everything you need to stay connected with public broadcasting in Southern Arizona. azpm.org. Life as a medical student isn't just about learning anatomy or practicing how to do a physical. At the University of Arizona College of Medicine, students in Alan Hamilton's From Barnyard to Bedside class are learning to be better doctors from horses.
He's under general anesthesia with...
Life as a medical student isn't just about learning anatomy or practicing how to do a physical. At the University of Arizona College of Medicine, it can also include a little horsing around.
I want you to meet him. I can go, come on. Okay, I can put a lot of energy on him. Okay.
Students in Dr. Alan Hamilton's From Barnyard to Bedside class are learning to be better doctors from horses.
You know, when you have a 1,000-pound patient, you really respect them. Eventually, with all of this stuff going on with the horses, they gradually realize I should be very aware of what I do as a doctor. And part of what affects what I do as a doctor is how I think about myself and how aware I am of what I do.
I've had a cold for the last couple of days.
So when did you get the cold?
About 3 days ago.
Well, like when, on the weekend? And anybody else sick at home?
No, not that I can
Okay, so how long have you been febrile?
I don't know.
Okay, so the point is, believe it or not, the average patient, gets interrupted within 29.5 seconds of the time they start telling the doctor what's wrong with them.
Hamilton, a UA professor of neurosurgery and horse whisperer, works with the horses on his 17-acre ranch, Rancho Bosque, to teach students the awareness and nonverbal communication skills they'll need to really connect with their patients.
So our bodies have all of that power. We've just sort of forgotten about it, but that's really what we convey to people with our bodies. We sort of have an instinctive reaction to body language, okay? So Ryan, you did a great job, thank you. And I'm gonna swap you out. You know, I mean, there's a big difference between, the difference between, I think, being a doctor and a healer is the doctor is just sort of giving you information and is a spectator, and the healer says, we're in this together.
Hamilton was a horse lover long before he was a healer. Although he grew up in New York City, he learned about horses and country living during visits to his grandfather.
I'm going to try and move predictably.
The need to have horses in his life was what drew Hamilton to Tucson and ultimately to Rancho Bosque.
We actually moved. I was at the Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston, and we actually moved out here because they had a great cancer center here, and I was, I was involved in surgery on brain tumors, that kind of thing. And then we really wanted a place where you could raise horses, and that was, those were the two requirements. You had to have a lot of brain tumors, and you had to have a place to keep horses.
But Hamilton kept his medical world and his horse world separate.
Hold on my shoulder for a second.
Until he noticed that he acted like a different person in each of his two worlds.
And I began to notice all this crazy stuff that I was doing. Like putting up x-rays and talking to the x-rays and not talking to the patient. I had the patient behind me, which is ridiculous. And then, it just got worse and worse. So then I started thinking, man, I would never use that kind of body language training horses. A lot of people evaluate the thyroid like this.
He wondered if spending time with horses would help his colleagues and students work more effectively with their patients.
I'm toying around with my hands around your throat. Since the whole thing had originated with horses, I said, well, it's kind of a crazy idea, but let me try it. And it worked. Just slow him down with your breathing.
Hamilton has now been teaching his From Barnyard to Bedside class for 12 years and has shared his curriculum with a number of other medical schools.
Slow him down, and I want you to turn your back towards him. Okay, just wait. Now, you see him coming toward you? Okay, so I want you to just start walking away with him now. Good, he's licking his lips, okay? Walk around in a big circle.
Because the horses are so sensitive to nonverbal cues, they force students to tune in to their own emotions and body language. When students learn to quiet themselves and stay in the moment, Hamilton says, they can finally listen to their patients.
Horses are very holistic. They're looking at everything around them, and they're looking at, and they don't care about your what you say, the lies you tell yourself or tell other people. They go, if you're present, I'll feel it. If you're not present, I'll know it. You gradually discover that it isn't about the horses. You're not working on the horses. You end up working on yourself. So what happens with these students, which to me is the amazing part, is I'll have students 4 years later come back and say, that was the most important class I ever had in medical school. And I say, why? And they go, because it really taught me about myself. Take the step back and then look at the hip. Now.
Second-year medical student Engel Ottman found her first time at Rancho Bosque so transformative that she's come back to do it again.
Good.
I think as doctors, we're very verbal people, and we're used to using our brains and our words to solve problems. And what I like about this is you have to calm down and connect with your energy and your body. And since in medicine, we are interacting with the patient's body and energy and emotions, I think that's why this is particularly valuable.
For Hamilton, every trip out to his pastures is a valuable opportunity to learn.
I once said to somebody, if you look at a herd of horses, just imagine a crowd of Tibetan monks coming towards you. They're like sensei. I'm learning every single day. Every single day those horses are teaching me something. And I think at night they go, that's the dumbest person we've ever met. He's always learning, but I'm learning patience from them. I learn to get rid of my emotion. I learn, when I work with a horse, I better not be in a hurry. Sometimes I wish they had taught me as much as they have when I was younger and parenting my kids, because they really taught me to slow down, and they taught me to dwell in the moment and not say, hey, we got 20 minutes here. So, as soon as that happens with a horse goes, okay, you got no integrity today, just leave. But if I say to myself, well, as long as it takes, and whatever's been bothering me out there, when I'm with you in a horse, I'm totally absorbed in that horse. So I learn every single day. I can honestly say that. Okay, so let's go these 4 teams.
And now Hamilton can honestly say that he and his horses are helping to shape the next generation of healers.
At the base of the Rincon mountain range, adjoining Saguaro National Park East in Tucson, there's a controversial 5,000-acre master plan community in the offing. Thousands of home sites, a golf course, schools, hiking, and equestrian trails. It's called the Rocking K Ranch, and it's 1989 from the vault.
It has been 2 years since the Estes Company began work to rezone the 6,000-acre Rocking K Ranch for a commercial and residential development. The land is owned by Bill and Shirley Estes and Don and Joan Diamond. With 6 times as much land as Ventana Canyon, the development proposed by the Estes Company is described by the firm as a Ventana Canyon times 6, a master-planned community sensitive to all environmental concerns, complete with golf course, hotel, shopping centers, and housing developments of varying densities. But opponents of the project say the proposal would result in nothing short of raping the desert area located near the Saguaro Monument East.
Unfortunately, the basis upon which it's going to be decided probably doesn't have a whole lot to do with what its real impact is going to be down the line. It's going to be decided upon a very nasty fight, but essentially the ball is being carried by the few folks who currently live in the area that's proposed to be rezoned. So it becomes a neighborhood issue.
It would appear that things are finally moving ahead for Rocking K, with a public hearing before the Board of Supervisors set for September 26th. But it is this public hearing that has opponents of the project upset.
What is the big hurry? If we're building a city in the Rincon Valley, that's a fairly significant event in the history of Pima County.
At least some of the Rocking K controversy will be settled not by the Board of Supervisors, but by the courts. To date, 3 lawsuits have been filed. The Rincon Valley Coalition has filed 2 appeals with the Board of Adjustment, which will be heard in Superior Court. Will the Rocking K Ranch ever become the master plan community proposed by the Estes Company? Under the best case scenario for Estes, Monson says any talk of groundbreaking is at least 2 to 3 years down the road.
Thank you for joining us here on Arizona Illustrated. Next week, the story of a priceless painting stolen from the University of Arizona Museum of Art 30 years ago. A fusion of the art and science of Earth and Mars. Seeking the truth for almost 20 years. And the new president of the U of A in 1982. I'm Tom McNamara. See you next week.